I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, y'all, it is Sunday afternoon, 3:31, 64 degrees in Kitsap County. Beautiful day. Yesterday was crazy, right? Thunder, lightning, off the chain, as they would say. I tell you what, though, it is different than East Coast lightning and thunder. It's crazy out that way. I was in Virginia a few months ago. Woo, boy, that was pretty wild. Like, it's actually kind of scary. But here, a couple rain delays for a few football games, things like that. But all in all, we definitely could use the rain. Fall is officially here. And as I say, winter is coming, but winter is already here. Today, we are going to have a special show. I think it's a critical conversation that we need to have in our community. I've been having a ton of conversations with folks, both that are pro-church and say anti-church. I don't know if that's the right terminology. But I've had quite a few conversations, and these are conversations that we do need to have. And it's appropriate because, again, we're talking about emergency management. And, man, we got to get ready. Yeah, thank you there, Mr. Dent. Good afternoon. Looking good. Thank you. I feel a little oily today, but it is what it is. Accounted, present, and accounted. However they say it. You try to get this glare out of my eyes there. See if that works a little better, man. I just turn it this way here. You guys probably don't want to see that in my face like that. But we need to have a conversation. And so what I've done is, as I was saying, I've had, I don't know, I would say probably close to 50 individual conversations with folks. And in these conversations, many questions have come up about the church, but the Black church in particular is what I'm focused on primarily, but the church in general, Christianity as it is, if you will. And what's going on with it? Why aren't people, well, one, why are they divesting from the Black church? And two, why aren't people going? Why are they not going back? Why are new people not discovering the church? Why, when they go and visit, they say, well, you know what, that's not for me. What's going on? There was a time in our history that the Black church was the most powerful pillar that we had, right? It was the cornerstone of a lot of what we were able to get done. There were power in numbers. We were together. The Black family was stronger, and that is not the case today. So what I've asked, these 50 or so folks is to give me their questions that I could bring out to pastors, clergy, church leadership, or even folks that are, just in the faith, right? Folks that have been, faithful and serving God and, know their Bible and can maybe answer these questions. A little bit of background for me. I am the son of a preacher, of a Baptist minister. I'm the grandson of a Baptist minister. So I grew up in the church, grew up reading the Bible. One of the cool things was memorizing the books of the Bible. Can't do it now. My memory is shot. But You know, we grew up learning about the Bible, praying, being faithful, and applying the teachings, and or having the teachings applied to us, right? As children. And so, I understand where many of these questions are coming from. Some of these questions, um, I either feel like I have the answer to or know what the answer may be. But some of them I do have questions myself. Now, what I have found in the church when my father was still alive, I found it very difficult to have these conversations with leadership in the church, right? And a lot of times they would just kind of default to, oh, you just need to pray more and you just need to be faithful. And that was kind of the answer, right? And it's like, that's not helpful, right? I'm questioning, I'm wondering, I'm wanting to learn, and you're just telling me to be faithful. That is not doing anything for me, especially as you become um educated, right, academically. I began to have even more questions, right? Because now I'm learning how to hypothesize and critically think and analyze and pull things apart, right? Now I can be intellectually honest, and I'm hoping that you can too, right? I believe that uh, large swatches of the Bible may be more parable, right? In order to teach what it's trying to teach. But there are some folks that are more literal, right? Like Jonah in the belly of the whale, Daniel in the lion's den. Some folks interpret that as those things actually did happen. So I can accept that premise either way and have a conversation. But answers are good. And unfortunately, what I have found is as we have continued uh, in the years, right? We're in 2021 now. I find that leadership is less accessible. They don't want to have the conversations. They don't have time. They're too busy. Or they tell you to come to Bible study. And then when you come to a Bible study, well, that's not what we're talking about right now. And they never seem to have the time to have that conversation. Or they'll, refer you to a Bible verse, tell you to start coming to church, something like that, right? And it's like, I have questions. I would like answers. Help me to understand. And so I get it. And so that resonates with me. Now, at the same time, I'm in this really strange situation, almost like in a Venn diagram of this crossover between being faithful and a believer that Jesus died for our sins and he will return again and that he rose on the third day, to saying, you know what? This is religion was a creation, a man made creation to control other men, other people. What is it? So I'm questioning. And you have folks that kind of fall into, I think, three or four different camps, right? You have those that believe and they serve. They believe and they serve. That's what they're going to do. You have those that don't believe and they're not going to serve. You have those that don't believe, but they're going to serve because they're trying to hedge their bet, right? Just in case this thing is real, man, I better go to church and try to be cool. I don't really believe this, but I better go. Then you have those that believe, but they don't go to church. They're not really active, right? These are the folks that are like, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, which I think fails on so many different levels, right? And if they actually believe the Bible that I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, will find themselves on the wrong side of judgment when the time comes. But let's get into it. And I think that I believe that when we talk about the theme of emergency management, you can be preparing yourself for a crisis, an earthquake, a pandemic, a job loss, health, retirement. But you can also have emergency management or emergency preparedness for spirituality, right? You're trying to make sure that your soul is right. So you can have it on both sides. And because if you are devout or working on your relationship with God and Jesus, then it would make sense that you are in a state of emergency management, right? Because you don't know the day nor hour of his return. Tomorrow is not promised to you, so therefore you got to get ready now. You won't have time to get ready, so you got to be ready. So I think it's apropos. Not only that, but as I said before, the black church, faith, religion in and of itself, when it's operating in its best way, it helps people, right? Brings people together, helps them to build their own communities, to thrive. But then there are a lot of bad things that happen in the name of Christianity, right? A lot of death, a lot of murder in the name of God. And even now, the Klan, the Proud Boys, Boogaloo Boys, are extremist groups, right? Many of them believe in the same God and the same Jesus as you do. They just have a different interpretation, right? They're reading the Bible. So who's right and who's wrong? It can be very difficult when people cherry pick scripture, books, chapters, verses, ideas. You and I can read the same verse and have a different interpretation. Well, who's right? Who's righteous? And this isn't even a black or white thing, right? We're in a small county here, and there are more than a handful of black churches. Why? Why? Sorry about that. Why? Why are there so many black churches? Especially when we are 3% of the population here in Kitsap County. They use the same Bible. They're praying to the same God. They're praying to the same Jesus. So what's the deal? So I haven't gotten a good explanation to that. So some would say, well, you got everyone wants to be a chef. No one wants to be a cook. So you've got all these chefs running around and they believe, because I just had some really bomb gumbo, that their gumbo is the best. And so therefore, I'm going to have gumbo, but I'm only going to have gumbo if I have it my way. And so anyone that feels like me, you can come along with me. And then maybe you believe it for a little while and something happens. You like, oh, screw that cook. I don't want him to put okra in there. I don't want her to put the spicy sausage in there. But this other chef over here, he says he's going to start up a new kitchen and he's going to put, just what I want in there. So I'm going to go on over here. How are we supposed to know what the right church is? If God is coming back, Jesus is coming back and he's looking for a church without a spot or a wrinkle, how do we know that's your church? Let's get into it. So again, these are questions that were submitted to me through my interviews or conversations with various people. And as I said, please share these out because these folks need answers, right? And they don't want to be told, well, you know what, come on to church. You know how it is when you were in school and you had you got a question. You really want to you need the answer, but you're afraid to raise your hand and ask the question. And you're like, man, I need to raise my hand. I need to ask. I need to ask. I need to ask. And then someone else asks the question, and you're like, oh, thank God. I had the same question. There are so many folks out here that have these questions, and some are afraid to ask. And some have asked and have not gotten a very clear answer. Some have asked and been told, well, just come on to church or just come on to Bible study. And like I said before, when you get there, well, they're preaching about something else. They're studying something else. So you can't sit and have a conversation and ask 10, 12, 13 questions of what's on your mind. So please ask your leadership, as they are supposed to be stewards, right, of God's word. And they're supposed to go out and bring people in, bring people to God, that they should feel comfortable with answering these questions. And they can just submit the questions online and I will share them with those. And hopefully, maybe they will actually increase their own flock because people respect answers, right? So here's the first one. Why do Christians say God works in mysterious ways when they can't explain something? This is a very frustrating answer to a non-Christian, a Christian who is been taught to believe in God but has questions and is thinking, is trying to be awake and critically think. And they're shut down by, well, you know, God works in mysterious ways. No one can explain these things, right? It's like, well, why is there so much oppression? Why do kids die? Why are kids in pain? Why do people have disease? Why is there war? Why is there famine, right? All these kind of huge questions that people have. But they all don't have to be that large, right? Like, well, I can't really explain that. You know, at the same time, what's interesting is, why then are they so sure about other parts of the Bible they interpret while others believe and have a different viewpoint? As I was saying before, you have several black churches. Maybe they're all reading the King James Version. Well, you have a black Baptist church, you have a white Baptist church, you have a Filipino Baptist church. And they are so clear on certain parts of the Bible. This is how it is, without a shadow of a doubt. But otherwise, oh, it's God works in mysterious ways and they can't explain it. And what's hard about this is, this has been the, the Bible, they've been using this, but this is 2021 AD, right? Generations of the church have been using the book. The book doesn't change. So why still are there so many quote unquote mysteries? Very difficult for folks trying to find answers, trying to make a decision spiritually for their lives. How can you follow the Bible when Christians can't agree on facts like what color was Jesus? Now we know because of slavery and other factors, even pre-slavery, right? I mean, slavery is only 400 or 500 years old. How can Jesus be blue-eyed, blonde in that region during that time? There's a couple YouTube videos where there was I think folks were down there on a pilgrimage, or what do they call that? Where white churches go down to Africa and try to help out. Can't think of the name of it right now, but one of their members kind of dressed up like Jesus, and whatever village they were in, the white folks were carrying them on their shoulders and basically started worshiping the man, right? Now they live in the region very close, closer than we do, but they were indoctrinated to believe that that is the image of Jesus. We're just talking about fact here, right? The region, that time, who that person is, he was described in the Bible. So, how can white people, and not just white people, we got Mexican Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, that believe, and black people that believe that Jesus is blue eyed, blonde hair. And if you're going to operate on a falsehood like that, what else is false? That's a pretty big piece to stand on, and saying, well, that's not important. What's important is all this stuff over here. No, it is important, right? See, it's perspective. So if you're a white person and Jesus is white, well, that's a lot easier for you to accept, right? And just say, well, don't worry about that. That's not what's important, right? But then I think other folks trick themselves, especially in the black community, when they say, well, yeah, I mean, clearly we know that that's not true, but we have the word and the word endures and yada, yada, yada. Well, what else is not true? What else does not make sense? And then how then, if you are building your faith, your religion on sand and not on a solid foundation, how does that work? Does anyone else have these questions aside from these 50 or so people that I spoke to? How is it correct biblically to go to war for God, but not okay for black people to go to war against their oppressors? As I was saying earlier, right? There have been many wars fought in the name of Jesus, in the name of God, in the name of Christianity. Is that what we're doing in Afghanistan, right? Muslim against Christianity. So how is that okay? How is that okay? But then we are told as black people to forgive, right? Even when we were listening and critiquing the CRT event that happened in Paulsboro last month, part of it was, you need to forgive, and, you need to forgive 77 times, right? They're quoting that part of the Bible. That's what they tell us that we need to do. But we get mandatory minimum sentences. We get over persecuted, over prosecuted, probably more accurate. But we're supposed to, I forgive. Dylan Ruth goes into a church, kills a bunch of people. They're already forgiven. The barrel of the damn gun hasn't even cooled off yet. But when you talk to individuals, let someone touch my baby. Oh, I'm going to prison. They ain't even got to worry. These are the same God-fearing people that are telling us that we're supposed to forgive, but they don't even talk like that, right? Even the podcast that I did with the Reb, we were having a conversation. He was like, "Man, you ain't have to worry about it. I, if it happened, they ain't even gonna have to worry about. I'll get the justice. You know what I'm saying? So even then, right? But we're told, oh, you just need to forgive, and we do. Cop walks into the wrong apartment. She thinks it's hers, so she kills the guy sitting on the couch with a bowl of cereal. Botham John, right? Everyone's forgiven. The judge comes down off of the bench to give her a hug. But they don't forgive us. Hell, not only do we forgive them, we don't forgive each other. They could kill us, destroy us, rape us. They could do all kinds of things. But your brother or your sister, oh boy, they're a done deal. Part and parcel why we can't work together, right? Without someone betraying you or stabbing you in your back, right? Again, small county, long memories. I don't work with this person. I don't mess with that person. But you done forgave all of these people that have taken your father, your mother. See, it's so bizarre to me. I look at other groups that have sold drugs to our community, destroyed black women, black men, black children, black families who have gangbanged and have hurt black people. We forgive them, we work with them, we celebrate them, we hold them up, but not each other. They can do whatever they want to us. And we just turn the other cheek 77 times, right? But they don't have to forgive us back. Find that very interesting. We can say, well, it's post traumatic slave syndrome. Okay. Well, if that's true, and we know that, why are we still that way? And does post traumatic slave syndrome say that we have to forgive our oppressors, but not each other? Is that what it teaches us to do? No, that's a hard one. Again, please share this with your clergy, your leadership, because folks need answers, right? They're watching you. Why does the black church or any who change their views on alternative lifestyles reconcile Jesus coming back and looking for a church without a spot or a wrinkle? The question is, you're telling me to read this Bible. I read this Bible, and we know that over the course of time, things change, right? Interracial marriage used to be illegal. I think it may still be illegal on some books. Gay marriage, illegal. Now it is legal. But there are a lot of churches, black and white, that believe that alternative lifestyles is a sin. But are they talking about it? Or are they afraid that they're going to get canceled? See, there's somewhere in the Bible that it talks about, if you deny me to others, then I will deny you to my Father. So is that not what these churches are doing when they back away from those conversations because they don't want to be judged or they don't want to be canceled or I don't know. So we're going to pick and choose what is acceptable, like infidelity, right? Sex before marriage, having kids out of wedlock, living in sin, shacking up, right? So these things are more acceptable, kind of like drinking and driving to certain populations. You see folks that have, 4 and 5 DUIs and they're still out on the road. But someone who has a charge for crack or meth, they're doing 20 years, 10 years. Just depends on what you want to enforce, right? So, what is the answer? Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church? How do you reconcile that? Alternative lifestyles based on what the Bible's teaching. What's your stance on that? What's your position? Emmanuel, what's your position on that? And what's your position on infidelity? I've heard that, they say that God doesn't measure sin vertically, he measures it horizontally. I don't know how true that is, right? God hates sin, but how does he measure it? Is a child molester worse than stealing? Is murder worse than uh, infidelity? Or is that how man interprets sin? We have a vertical, this hierarchy of sin, one worse than the other. That I know is true because that's how we sentence folks and charge folks for crimes, right? But is that how God does it? And then if God does it in a certain way, why does the church or why does not the church follow suit? That's a question that a lot of folks actually had on there. Again, as I was saying, the Bible speaks of forsaking him. Why doesn't the church stand strong in its beliefs that are unpopular with the dominant society? And that kind of goes back to the beginning, right? Where sometimes that answer is, well, God works in mysterious ways. But then on other parts of the Bible, that's how it is. There's no black, there's no gray. It's black and white. That's it. So where is it now? And who is making these decisions? Who's making these decisions? And the reason why these things are so important is, how is someone seeking a Christian God supposed to decide which church is the true righteous church? Is New Horizon Missionary Baptist Church the right church? Are they righteous? Is Sinclair the righteous church? Is it Mount Zion? Is it Emmanuel? Or the other black churches that exist here in the county? Or is it a white church? Or a Filipino church? Or a Pacific Islander church? Or a Hispanic church? Etc. How does someone who is seeking the Christian God know if they're in the right place? How does someone who grew up in the church, who is now an adult and is not connected to a church, doesn't have a church home, sees all the stuff going on in the world and feels like, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. That's what I was taught when I grew up. And I need to get closer to God, and I need a place to do it, but I don't know where to go. Where do I go? Who's right? Why is Mount Zion less than a mile and a half away from Emmanuel? Why are they both less than 5 miles away from Sinclair? Or the church down on Park. I can't think of that church, the name. I think there's one in church. I think there's one close to Lions Field also. What church is right? Oh, hey there, Brother Daryl. He said the government makes the decisions because the church is a business. Yeah, you know what? Since the 501c3 status, the church accepted that. All of a sudden, that's where I think a lot went off the rails. I absolutely agree with that statement. Thanks for asking the question or making the statement. Share this with the leadership. So these are questions based on my conversation with 50 individuals, particularly black men, but women, and also in young adults, teenagers, and other folks. So how do you figure that out? How does someone know? We know there's a lot of history, right, on how churches were formed here just in this county, right? This isn't unique to the black church here. This happens everywhere, right? So how are you supposed to know? Another question that I got, and I believe this, while I agree that the pastor should be paid a livable wage to take care of themselves and their families, why are most churches, especially mega churches, why do they live a life of decadence and excess? See Creflo Dollar in his private jet, TD Jakes. Prosperity Ministry. And what's so disgusting about it, right? As you see them in their big houses, nice cars, dressed to the nines. Boy, you thought you got sharp for the club. Ain't got nothing on some of the pulpit pimps. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with getting clean and looking nice for God. That's how I was raised, right? When I see people coming to church with jeans on, it's off-putting because I wasn't raised that way. You know, dressing up, you were paying your respect to God. Even though the Bible says, come as you are. You could be poor, but you can be clean and put together. And historically, that was the one space that we could have to ourselves as we were coming through slavery, right? That was our space on Sunday. That was our time. So we could get dressed up, feel good, look good. Now, Easter, the fashion show, right? Ooh, let's see those outfits. I mean, they're not gators, but even I got some, some popping purple dress shoes. Can't wait to pop them bad boys out. What does that have to do with serving God? A lot got lost in the sauce, right? This is how people stray. You're doing great, and you tell me to pray, and God's going to make a way and make it better. And year after year after year, doesn't seem like the people in the audience, in the congregation, they don't seem to be doing much better. Pastor's doing great. And how do we know? We can look at the status, which if you read the description, we can look at our illiteracy rates in our community, especially for our boys. We can look at our wealth and how it continues to be beyond laughable compared to other communities, especially the white community. What they say, 12, was it 12 minutes? The dollar is in the black community before it's gone. Right? We're not progressing, we're regressing in almost every facet. So it's hard to see the Creflo Dollars, the TD Jakes, and the others live in that way and say, hey, you too can be blessed if you're faithful. Pay your tithes, pay your offering. You ain't got it. Give till it hurts. Where's the charter schools? Where's the credit unions? Where's the housing programs? Seems like if they got that much money going, they should have Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for is it humanity? Yeah, where they building the homes. You all come together and we build this black family a home. Rinse and repeat. And we create home ownership through the black church. We don't have to worry about CRT or the left and the right trying to distract from teaching actual American history, which is black history, and talk about the sins that they have created, that they have visited upon us all the way up into today. We could teach our own babies. We can ensure that they're not illiterate. We could teach them the vocational skills. We could teach them the financial literacy. So we don't have to complain about what the school ain't doing. We could teach our entrepreneurship. We did all those things once. Why is the church switched to a prosperity gospel, but black parishioners are still impoverished and oppressed? That is what I was just talking about, right? This is a huge issue. we continue to languish. And as I said, I switched from saying winter was coming to winter is here weeks ago. But it's September 19th. We got 11 days before that moratorium is off. My organization, other buy and for organizations, people are coming in nonstop. I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my rent. Evictions are about to start in 11 days. Day 12, 1 October. And even if they extend the bridge again, soon that bridge is going to run out. Your relationship with your landlord is bad. They want you out. There are other people that will pay. They're increasing your rent. You haven't worked, so now you don't have work history. You don't have 2 years. Vaccine or not, if you get COVID and you get sick, like I did, like I am, right? I'm going on almost week 4 here. Well, if you don't have a job that allows you to pay for your sick time, and if you don't have that sick time built up, or employees that can donate to your sick leave, assuming you even have it, what happens when you can't pay your bills? Right? So you could have worked this entire time, could have paid your rent, everything could have been fine. You get sick for a little bit. Now you can't pay. What you gonna do? Maybe your credit is shot on top of that. And then once you have an eviction on your record, where are you going? Who's renting to you? The term affordable housing is already laughable. Where are you going? Who's going to help you? See, there's already so many of us that are staying in someone else's house, in the spare bedroom, sleeping on the couch, trying to hang on. The organizations that were in position to help, churches that were in position to help, they have been strained because they've been helping this whole time, right? For the last year and a half with food and paying for hotel stays and doing these different things, right? Their resources are finite. And while the Democratic president, he really didn't make any promises to the black community, so it's not like he really lied to you. He didn't tell you he was going to do anything, and he hasn't done anything. What you going to do? See, everybody thinks that the homeless are, just these degenerate criminals and drug addicts. Not true. Many have just had a bad situation. They got sick. A kid got sick. Someone died. They lost their job. They experienced some kind of a natural disaster or displacement. Their house caught on fire. These places are already full. It's September. When fall and winter comes, what are you going to do? And what's the church going to do? What can the church do? What did the church do? So while it's a prosperity gospel, be faithful, pray, What's changing? Because what I see out here is things have gotten worse for our people and are only going to get worse. But they seem to have resources for the 150,000 Afghans that are flying into the country, right? Medical, money, housing. They're quick, fast, in a hurry to get those Haitians up out of here. I'm going to do another podcast on that. The darker you are, the faster you got to get the hell up out of the United States. So why does the church preach wait on the Lord, faith, patience, when oftentimes they themselves reject, shun, cancel, and shut down those that are seeking answers? This is another one that a lot of folks uh, had as a question. They've asked some questions. They've been critical of the church. And the folks at the church get really defensive. Don't be talking about my pastor. That's my pastor. That's my first lady. Nope, you don't sit here. Right? Like what? I just came, huh? I tell you, when we follow the dominant society in most things, doesn't end well for us. Doesn't bode well for us. But like I said, you know, I've asked the questions myself. But folks are told very similar things. Well, why don't you come on down to Bible study on Wednesday or Friday, whenever it is? Okay, I'll come down. Well, right now we are in First Timothy and we're talking about this particular thing. Um, brother, I want to answer your questions, but right now, we need to stay on topic. Maybe we could talk a little bit after, but usually they got somewhere that they got to be, right? You ask the pastor who doesn't have time, or C question one, God works in mysterious ways. Okay. Can anyone answer the questions for me? Is there anywhere that I can go? Clearly, I need help interpreting this thing, and clearly, you can't even interpret the thing. The Bible being the thing, right? Because as I said before, they could be very black and white about certain parts of the Bible, and then others, oh, it's all this gray area. Double speak. Or whatever the dominant society says is acceptable now. Because you don't want to lose your status, right? And I'm not sure if they're 501c3s or 501c4s, but they have a tax exempt status. Say what you will about the white evangelical churches that have some pretty straight up white supremacist beliefs, but they don't hide it. That's what they believe. Many of us kind of like our racism like that, Don't hide it, just be straight up. You don't like me, you think I'm this, that, and the other. Cool. I know where I stand with you. It's the ones that shake your hand, tell you that they agree with you, while at the same time they're sitting on your jury, sentencing you to the maximum. convicting you. They're the prosecutor that says that, they're a champion, BLM, right? Did I just read in the Kids App Sun that they let the woman go that supposedly set up the gentleman to get him to the spot to be murdered? How does that work? When the saying is they could charge a ham sandwich if they wanted to, but here, oh, we go ahead and just drop it, right? Status quo, even here. This doesn't have to be Minneapolis. This doesn't have to be South Carolina, or New York, or California. It could be right here in Kitsap County. So why can't folks get answers to the questions that they have, whether they're harsh or not? They have questions, right? You've taken this position to be a shepherd of God's people. Then all of a sudden, seems like you're hiding. Or you say, well, that's not of God, so I'm not going to deal with that. I tell you, if we were the people that were in the Bible that had to go through the stories, we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have made it. No conviction. All right. Why are most churches hostile and cold to new attendees? I told my dad, it was probably like 15 years ago now. My dad went to Rochester Colgate Divinity, something college or something like that, right? So he went his I don't know if it's his bachelor's or his master's was in theology. So he studied, the Quran or the books of the Bible, this and that. And after his study, he still was Christian. And so I love having conversations with him because he actually read the other books, right? He actually studied other religions. So conversations with him is was always really fascinating, And he just had a different perspective. Wasn't this kind of myopic viewpoint on this. Although he too he get caught up with the, faith if I stumped him on a question. But, you know, being his son, he's willing to have those conversations, right? As long as I'm respectful. Yeah, for the most part, I'll be respectful unless I was just trying to pull his chain. I'd say something crazy. I say blaspheme, blaspheme. All right, Marwan. He would joke with me. But I told him St. Paul, it was on Sheridan, I believe, white Episcopalian church here in the county. The friendliest church that I've ever been to. Walked in, and this is it seemed like 98% white church, right? Actually made me really feel comfortable. Didn't really feel out of place aside from being out of place, right? It's just gonna be how it is if you're, you know, the only black person or one or two or three black people in the sea of 70 or so, you know what I mean? But inviting. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. So glad that you came in. And not in a pretentious or who are you? Who you here? Who invited you here? See, I've got that from every other church that I've been to here in this area. Even the church that was my dad's church that he went to, I would get that. I'd get the look. Like, who are you? And well, I get, my dad would say, son, you got to understand. Think of church as a hospital. Who's in the hospital? Sick people. Who's in the church? Sinners, there to get well. And so you're not going to go to a church and bump into folks that are, perfect, right? They're coming with their flaws. They're human, coming with their baggage. They're coming with their issues. But it's like, well, damn, Dad, um, they're at church every Sunday, sometimes on Wednesday too, and Friday for choir rehearsal, and maybe a Friday service, and maybe they're there on Monday night. They're there for special occasions. They have their auxiliary programs, this, that, and the other. So they're in it. And I come in as a stranger and you're looking at me like, who the hell am I? The only thing you really seem to really care about is when the collection pay comes around, or if I can give my labor to you for free. Oh, what? Oh, you teach at the college. Oh, maybe you could do some tutoring or some mentoring. Like, what? Oh, put me to work. I don't even know if this is the spot for me. You know what I'm saying? You don't even know what I got going on in my life. You know what I mean? That was another really big one that a lot of folks got. Didn't feel comfortable. And, I don't know, this just kind of popped in my head while I'm going over this. But the Bible says, what does it say, come as you are? I don't know if that's in the Bible or if that's just what the church says. Come as you are. And what I will say is the church that seems to do that the most is New Horizon. I've gone in there and I've seen folks that are on the street, and I was that Reverend Art. I don't know what Reverend Art's or Pastor Art. I don't know what the name of his church is. Those are the two churches that I've seen that are actually like, come as you are. We that's what we want. Come as you are. And it was so weird because I remember going into New Horizons. I was there with Pastor Mac and Reverend Ellington and the bishop over there. And folks had coffee and water in the congregation, in the just sitting right in the pews. It was like, what? They're literally drinking while the service is going on, right? And there's so many ways that you get indoctrinated into the customs of a particular church and what you do and what you don't do. Like you don't chew gum in the sanctuary. I mean, we grew up that way. Uh, my best friend was a Pentecostal. His mom was Pentecostal, so we went to a Pentecostal church, and they were strict, right? Women don't wear pants. I mean, they lived in the church, and oh man, that lady, that was my mom. She would pinch me so hard. I would rather take a lash from my dad's belt than to be pinched from her. She would pinch me so hard, I thought I was going to pass out. It would be during the service because I was doing something wrong. And I'm not little either. I'm like, even as a teenager, she'd catch that little meat on the back of that elbow, you know, and don't you holler because it's just going to get worse. So you just sitting there in silence. So I learned sign language so we could talk in church because Georgia May was not having it. But that is the church that seems to be the most welcoming. And I'm sure the other churches will say, hey, no, you come as you are, right? But I'm like, I always come. I don't know if I'd go to church and not wear a tie. I think I've tried it. Just feels so hard to do it. But then when I go to church and folks are wearing jerseys and shorts, and it's like, what the, again, the customs, right? Supposed to dress up, right? Pay respect to God. It's very, very confusing for me. But a lot of people have had that experience. They've gone to a church, they've gotten that vibe, and they've never gone back. And so it could be that they just got the wrong person on the wrong day. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, right? Because these folks are searching for something. And those folks should be the VIPs in my eyes. Another question. There are lost books of the Bible. How can a righteous church correctly serve the Christian God if they reject some books, chapters, verses, and messages that are in the Bible? This kind of goes back to the questions about lifestyle um, choices. What does the church, what's their viewpoint? How do they handle infidelity in the church? If God measures sin horizontally and not vertically, right? And we're all going to fall short of the glory of God. We're all going to be sinners. How many times do we get to continue to sin and it be okay? The title of this is Most Christians Are Going to Hell. Do you think they know? So if you turned up on Saturday night and then you got home and you really turned up and then you went to church on Sunday morning, going to heaven? You die Sunday afternoon? Hmm. I mean, what do you think? I'm asking again. If you died today, do you really believe you would go to heaven? And most of you went to church today. So you should be good and prayed up, right? I'm pausing there because I think it's important to. God knowing your heart is not going to keep someone out of hell. Well, God knows my heart. I'm a good person. Really? Are you? Are you continuing the same sin over and over and over again and you're not working on it? Are you making justifications on why you're doing it? Are you not changing your surroundings, the people you commune with, hang out with? We're talking about accountability, right? I got a drinking problem, but I keep going to the bar. I got a drug issue, but I keep hanging out with the same people. And it doesn't even have to be hard, right? Whatever that thing is, whatever that vice is that's getting in the way of you serving God, you got to steer away from, right? That could be marijuana. But you want that marijuana, you want that alcohol so bad. You're functional. You go to work, but you don't have what you need. Kids don't have what they need. It's not the priority. So, knowing your heart, I don't think it's going to be good enough. Still going, buddy. Who do you hate? Who haven't you forgave? We're talking about, oh, I'll forgive you, man. I ain't gonna forget. Is that really forgiveness? But again, we forgive the dominant society. We'll forgive the Dylan Roos. But we won't forgive each other. Right? You know, they have that saying that those who are closest to you are the ones that can hurt you the most, which I guess might be a reason on why we stay angry and we don't forgive. Or we say, well, I forgive this person, but I ain't gonna mess with them. So, what is your sin? What are you doing over and over and over again? But you're a good person and God knows my heart. You really believe you're going to go to heaven? Who you been plotting against? Who have you been undermining? Who you been cooning for? How have you hurt your community? Who have you sold out to? How have you betrayed your own people? The funny thing about those statements is hit dogs holler. Because when it doesn't apply to you, it means nothing, right? You could tell me, uh, you know, I don't know, I like liver and onions. Arwan likes liver and onions. I don't. So I don't care. You know what I mean? But if you say something that is hurtful and it's a lie, yeah, I'm gonna feel some kind of way about that. Right? You're trying to defame my character. Yeah, I'm gonna feel some kind of way whether that's true or not. If someone is making a general statement that people in this group do this, or people in this group tend to do this, because there are no absolutes, right? We're intellectually honest here. We have these conversations. We know we're not saying all 100%. But as we're speaking in general terms, right? If you don't fit that criteria, okay. Again, I'm asking, if you died today, do you believe you go to heaven? And that is a question that folks had, right? Because they see what happens in the church. They know about the drama, because many of us have been in the church, right? And we left the church. They know about the drama. They know about the gossip and the talking. They know about um, ostracizing people inside of the community of the church. They know about the relationships that are happening in the church. They know about how there are pastors that undermine Black relationships when the man is supposed to be the head of the household. But they got it set up where the woman is listening to her pastor and is driving a wedge in the home. They see all of that, right? So, what are you participating in as a member of that church? And that's you in the church, not you outside the church. What you doing outside the church? That's the question. They see folks living life pretty much the exact same way that they live life, except for they just don't go to church on Sunday. You go to church and they're at Buffalo Wild Wings watching the game or barbecuing and watching the game. Or as my dad would say, Sheetside Baptist, which is where I usually used to go. I'm in the bed. That's sleep in day. So when people are watching that, when they know about it, when they are at the Thanksgiving dinner or at the birthday party or at Christmas dinner or whatever, the family reunion, and they're watching the church folks talking about the other church folks and the drama that's going on inside the church. And then you're telling them, you know, you need to come to church, boy. It's like, for what? It's like high school up in there. See, folks are watching. They're searching for something. They need something. It can be the Black church. It used to be the Black church. And I believe it can be again. But it's not right now in most cases. Again, why does the Black church preach forgiveness and forgive the Dylan Roos, the dominant societies, oppression? They forgive that. All day long, they forgive it. You may have seen the video where the Black mother, was going off on the son, cursing the son out for not voting for Biden. Probably one of the worst presidents for Black people in the history of America, in the laws that he passed. But they made Trump to be a boogeyman, and we had to get Trump out of there. But Trump hasn't done what that man has done for almost my entire life, which is as long as Biden has been in office. Mandatory minimum sentences. I don't know if you've seen any of the old footage of him speaking about us and how we have to be locked away. Biden is far worse than Trump. Far worse. And again, whatever you believe about immigration, the Haitians are going back with the quickness. The president was assassinated. They've had all these natural disasters, and they're trying to flee here for a better life for themselves and their kids. I don't think there's any protest or marching going on. Have you seen any for the black immigrants coming through? Just saying. And even while I'm saying that, they do need to go back. And that's another podcast that I was going to do last night, but I got caught up in some other research. How is it righteous for Christians in the dominant society to be unforgiving, initiate and instigate wars and oppress other groups? This is our evangelical churches and our white churches that support this. I was watching a episode, I think it was Vice, and they were talking about how Israel uh, was treating their Ethiopian Jewish community. And they were uh, kind of following around an Ethiopian rap artist and talking about the police brutality in Israel and um, going to his home and speaking to his family. And it looked a lot like the United States. It looked a lot like the United States. But we wouldn't know that, right? So again, that goes with the question before. Been a lot of wars in the name of Christianity. The dominant society, the white society, is particularly unforgivable. You know it in the laws that they create and they enforce on the select few, not themselves. But we're somehow supposed to forgive, and we do forgive, right? We offer up forgiveness right off the bat. Oh, eyes forgive, eyes forgive. But they reading the same Bible. They don't forgive. They want justice and they're going to get justice. But we still talking about voting rights, which again is connected to the black church, right? We got to vote for Biden. Biden runs around to the black church. Black church tells his congregation, oh, we got to get big bag Trump up out of there. They don't ask for anything. And he doesn't do anything. AAPI hate. Mainstream media puts out all these videos, right? $50 million to the Asian Pacific Island community, Asian American Pacific Island community. Then the FBI stats come out and they say, oh, well, you know what? Actually, black people were still experiencing it more. We've been experiencing before the pandemic. So that's what reparations is, right? So they got $50 million in reparations for the treatment of what's been happening to them based on the pandemic happening. But we still fared worse than they did in the exact same time period, but they got $50 million. And oh, yeah, we were dealing with that before then. And yes, the violence and the words and the hate, it's all bad. But I didn't see any AAPI community member having someone have their knee, someone, police, have their knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes, killing them and murdering them in front of the world to see, or being shot 7 times in the back, or all the other murders that we've seen over the course since George Floyd's death. We ain't seen it. $50 million. Sunday service is one of the most segregated hours in America. The question that they had was, so does that mean there's a black heaven, a white heaven, an Asian heaven, etc.? At first, that seemed kind of silly as a question, but then when you think about it, it's like, well, you know what? That's a good point, right? You say that God is love, and um, you know, God is looking for people that are going to serve Him. So wouldn't it be those that are faithful and live to God's teachings? Those are the folks that are going to go to heaven. But then you look, and it is quite segregated. So if he's coming back, and he's looking for a church without a spot and a wrinkle, or a wrinkle, and you happen to, uh, obviously, if you live in an area where it's just all black folks, then how are you going to have anyone else that comes, right? Again, intellectually honest people. But we're 3% black here in this county, and there's a bunch of us, a bunch of churches, unfortunately. Shouldn't we have a mixture of a lot of different folks in the church? Why is it so segregated? I think it's actually kind of a good question. This one was out of order. Kind of goes with the questions above, but let me read it because I want to honor everyone's question that they put forth. How do we forgive gangbangers, drug dealers, and other criminals in other groups who have destroyed our men, women, and children? Not only do we give them a pass, we work with them, praise them. The dominant society incarcerates and destroys black offenders, while theirs are told they have a disease and are offered drug court, other pathways to restoration and forgiveness, while black people rot inside and outside of jail and prison. And I spoke about this one earlier, and this goes along with the forgiveness. And there are a lot of folks that have been victims of crimes. And it's hard for them to kind of reconcile with the whole, oh, we're just going to turn the other cheek and we're just going to forgive. They're like, no, I'm not going to forgive. I keep watching this stuff happening damn near on a daily basis. And you want me to just keep forgiving? Like, no, I'm not doing that. So I'm not going to be a part of some church that's like, oh, just turn another cheek, just forgive, just forgive, just forgive. And at the same time, they're watching them not forgive each other. Kind of same thing with frequenting black businesses, right? Well, again, if you're talking about, you know, uh, post traumatic slave syndrome, if we're talking about being oppressed and not having access, and anytime we build something up, Black Wall Street is destroyed. And we can go even more contemporary, right? Prince all of a sudden dies. And that was happening right around the time, I think, what was it? Can't remember what he owned. Michael Jackson mysteriously died. Bill Cosby is able to be charged for crimes 30 and 40 years back when he was trying to buy a TV station. Even Oprah now, right? They're done with their toys. So now they're starting to break Oprah. Nick Cannon has a conversation and is critical of the Jewish community. And they immediately showed him where the power lied. These things have to be acknowledged. A one off, maybe it's a coincidence. 4, 5, 6 times. Kobe Bryant was getting ready to do some pretty major things. That we know about the government sanctioned murder of Malcolm Martin Carmichael, on and on and on and on. But we forgive all that. You ever stop and wonder where the black community would be if they hadn't murdered Malcolm? If they hadn't murdered King? Can you even imagine where we'd be? And I know that we don't. And the reason why I know that we don't is because we don't talk about it, right? All we say is what the dominant society allows us to say, right? Martin Luther King, he had a dream. I had a dream that one day. But toward the end, King was sounding more like Malcolm, which is why he had to die at any means necessary. What would it be like if the church actually kept on? I get it. It's scary, right? It's assassination, taking out our leaders. And they can touch anyone. Where will we be? How strong would our black family still be? How strong would the black church still be? How powerful would our HBCUs still be? But everyone else, we got to forgive. And we forgive them. Like I said, we work with them. We sell ourselves out just to be next to them. Even when they say the most vile things about us in their circles, that we make all these concessions for them. All of a sudden, we can see their perspective on things. We can give them the benefit of the doubt. We can be empathetic and sympathetic to their situation. to their plight, to their oppression. That makes sense to us, so we can forgive and we can work with them. We'll build them up, we'll praise them. But they might have killed one of our sons, one of our fathers, one of our uncles, one of our leaders, one of our inventors, one of our role models, one of our mothers, one of our daughters, one of our sisters, one of our teachers, one of our nurturers. So I guess the way how it's constituted right now, if I were to answer that question, most Christians are going to hell. Do you think they know it? I guess I'm going to hell because I'm not in the forgiving business anymore. And you can call me divisive, and that's not helpful, and that's not productive, and we've got to learn how to forgive, and that hate is just going to eat you up, that anger is going to eat you up, and that's just that's not what the Lord would want. And that may make you, give me a wide berth and tell other folks that I'm not a good person to be around. But I think we've been suckered long enough. I think we've been bamboozled long enough. And we've done it for so long, we do it to ourselves. They don't even have to do anything anymore, right? They have to say, hey, you know what? It's in your best interest to say that you forgive. Aside from when they go and get that coon attorney to come out and, you know, tell the parents, typically the mother of some of the cops just killed, you need to go out and tell everyone to, go home. That's not what your son would want. That's not what your daughter would want. They wouldn't want you guys out here rioting and looting so they can get the bag. So he can get his bag, right? He's got to be one of the worst. Faith without acts is dead. What then are the tangible advice for Christians outside of prayer and faith? I think this is super important here. It's another really big question that a lot of folks have, because and it goes back to that first one, right? When folks in the Christian community, especially the Black Christian community, can't answer a question and they just say, faith. I have faith, and um, as you come in and you start learning more about God and getting to know God, your faith will grow. Folks need something tangible. Give me the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? We're in a Google society. Tell me what to look up. Google what? What do I do outside of prayer and faith? Because when things get bad enough, most everybody prays, right? Lord, if you please let me get out of this situation. I promise you, I will not do it again. I will change my life. I will do this and that. I promise you, Lord. Lord, just help me with this thing, please. Please help me with this thing. Lord, I'm not ready to die. I want to do better. Help me to be a better parent. Help me to be a better person. I'm sorry. Forgive me. But what do they do? What do they do? What should they do aside from be faithful and pray? Oh, and read the Bible, right? What should they do? What are their steps? Is it just the 10 commandments? Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not murder? Or is it more than that? What should they do? And I think that's important for those that are actually in the church and are devout and go every Sunday, especially for a lot of the prosperity ministry, right? You pray for wealth, you pray for a husband, you pray for this, you pray for that. And year in and year out, that husband doesn't come. Year in and year out, you're making the same amount of money you were before. Well, you got to go to school. You got to get some training. You got to leave the job. What are you supposed to hit the lottery? Everyone's supposed to hit the lottery who's praying? What are they supposed to do? What are the steps? Because what is going to change in their life? They're on welfare. They're waiting for their kids to get school age so they can go to work or go to school. They're working a job and they're making $25,000 a year or $30,000 a year. Hell, they might be making $50,000 a year. Not buying a house like that, not typically. So how are they going to get more? Just prayer? Or are they going to get some kind of magical raise? Some kind of position is going to open up that's perfect for them, and they're going to be able to just slide right into it and increase their wealth by 10 grand a year? What are they supposed to do? Oh, they pray about it, and through prayer that the answer will come. But when it doesn't come again, year after year after year after year, I can go to any church right now, and a good percentage of the people are still doing the same stuff they were doing 4 or 5 years ago. And many of their prayers haven't changed. What are they supposed to do? What's the tangible? And how does the church actually help with the tangible? God got the spiritual part, right? God's got the prayer and the faith. So, what is the church physically doing to help them to achieve their goals that they're praying for? Health is wealth. Okay. So, are you changing what you feed your congregation? Or is it still the peach cobbler with 1,000 pounds of butter and sugar for every event that you have? Are you teaching your congregation how to eat healthy? Are the cooks starting to find alternative recipes that start to cut the fat and the sugar and the salt? Because so many of us have high blood pressure, are obese, raised in food deserts, raised in generations of processed food and fast food. Are we teaching home protection? Are we teaching our history? Are we filling in the gaps that they're not getting, right? I'm going to show you some stats here in a minute about the illiteracy rates of our boys. So you got these boys that are sitting in the pews with their mothers, usually single mothers, and they can't read at their level. I was just saying this a few weeks ago to Okoye. We were on that 5-hour podcast, and it was like one of the thing that frustrates me. Um, there's a lot of things that frustrates me, but one of them is I watch these kids and they will rap a verse out in the parking lot of the church or in the park like they wrote it. Cardi B didn't write WAP. The 10-year-old kid did. And they sound better than the original person. And then you ask them to go and read the bulletin. They can't read. And it's painful. And then I watch their white counterparts speak and read with confidence. It's like, wait a minute. How do you know all these words, but you can't read an announcement, let alone a Bible verse, right? That can already be hard. I don't really hold that against anyone, even the adults. Thou dothest, saith the Lordeth. You know what? And then all the names in there. That's crazy. That's not what I'm talking about. The bulletin, the announcements, just regular English words. Can't read it. Or they sound horrible. And sometimes they've actually practiced. What is the church doing? What should the congregation be doing so that their prayers actually come to fruition? That's a big one. Let's let that one wash over you a little bit. You know, it seems like the church has an escape clause for the bad in the world. Satan is a lie. Is this why there's an epidemic of pulpit pimps, hustlers, whores, liars, cheats? Why has the number of black men been declining over the years? Little Nas X, Cardi B, and others seem to be the spokespeople for the black community now, right? And what did Little Nas X just get done saying? He can give a F about our kids. Single parenthood, gangs, drugs, illiteracy, and other dysfunction plague us. I think the black church has a lot to be accountable for here. And again, this may go back to what Daryl was saying, right? Once they came under that government status, all of a sudden, we were done. How is Cardi B in position to be speaking about the black community to Bernie Sanders? But we were N-words previously. Oh, and she's drugging and setting up men with trans folk to ensure that they don't report her for crimes. And she's admitting to this, right? She's actually admitting to it. Bill Cosby, 30, 40 years ago, not admitting to anything. Somehow he can be charged. It's actually admitting to a crime. But we're holding that up. And we make the excuses and everything else, right? And there's so many of y'all in the church that are bumping your Lil Nas X and your Cardi B and your Meg The Stallion. And we see your little kids reciting it and twerking and doing all the stuff. They can't read or write worth a damn. They sure don't know any math facts. Now, if you think everyone is going to be LeBron or Jerry Rice or Drake or Cardi B, you got another thing coming. The percentiles are so infinitesimal, right? But that's the black lottery, right? So, as I said before, I've been asking mostly black men, women, and folk from other groups, teenagers also, on why they no longer go or believe in the Christian church or will not go to church at all. And again, for context, I grew up as a son, a grandson of Baptist ministers, and I've spent a lot of time listening, hearing, reading, and applying the word and having that word applied to me. And some of those questions that are there, I would like to gain some more understanding too. There were 50 people in my uh, sample size as far as asking questions of them, of what their questions were, to bring to the religious leadership of the Black Christian Church primarily. But I do believe that the Black Church was the most powerful entity in the Black community, and it had moved us forward up through the civil rights era. The church now seems largely defunct compared to its former years. Just like the HBCUs, the National Urban League, the NAACP, and other former Black pillars, they all seem quite feckless right now. A lot of racism going on in this county right now. A lot of discrimination going on in this county right now, whether it be housing or stuff that's happening at the school, shipyard. These entities have no power. And quite frankly, most of the time they're advocating for other groups. So these groups that were originally founded for us have morphed into this thing where we're the champion for everyone else's causes. But we're so damn busy holding the bag for everybody else, we don't ever have time to put our hands in the bag and pull out what we need. We're in a state of divisiveness, white supremacy, institutional racism. The racial projections of 2045 indicate that Black people will exist as a nomadic, dystopic people waiting to die while hoping they were devout enough to be accepted into heaven. We don't have a lot of time. Time is running out. For many, it's already too late, and we understand, at least I do, we can't save everyone. And that's been a hard one for me to grapple with over the last, I'd say, 6 months. For the last 6 months, I've been struggling with the fact that, yes, I understand on some level, it's not realistic that you're gonna be able to save everyone. But it didn't stop me from trying and really believing that everyone that I came across could be saved, right? It's part of our vision. Self-sufficiency for all Kitsap County, finding unique ways to help them move across that spectrum of self-sufficiency. And not independence, but interdependence. But I get it. I can't save everyone. G2 can't save everyone. For me to have ever thought like that was overzealousness. Please share this with your pastors and other church leaders who can answer these questions. And please let them know that they can please come to the podcast and type it into the chat. They can reach out and send it to me in an email and just answer the question. As you can see, these questions have been put into the chat so they can respond right there. That's why it's done in that format. But if they are truly the steward of God's people, then I think they should be willing to come and answer these questions. They even have time to be thoughtful on how they answer the questions. But if they need to answer them in the dark, one on one behind closed doors, that's not useful. If someone has to attend their church service to get an answer, that's not useful. If someone has to go to their Bible study to try to get an answer, that's not useful. I will say that if they are willing to come and answer those questions, that the 50 people plus more will see what churches were willing to engage in dialogue, who are truly being inviting, right? People have their perspective. So from their perspective, they feel like they're not welcome. Yeah, it's said, yeah, come on, we want everyone. Come on in. We'd love to have you. But then when they go, they get a very different experience. So by seeing the responses from the particular churches and tell them to put their church name in there so they know, I think they would probably see an increase in their attendance because they would be able to see who's authentic and who is willing to answer the questions. And again, your own faith is what do they usually say before they preach? Lord, I ask you to move me aside and let your words let you speak. So on faith, if that's their prayer, they should be able to answer those questions in confidence. So please share that information. Now, why this is so pressing and how this works with emergency management. Enrollment by race for Medicaid and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children show similar enrollment as those in SNAP. Black people make up just 13.4% of the US population and are therefore overrepresented in the welfare programs. we are also um, incarcerated in state and federal prisons at 5 times the rate of white Americans. 1.1% of all Black Americans are incarcerated compared to 0.02% of white Americans. And that information is of October 30th of 2020, so last year. So when you take those two demographics alone and you're looking at those that are um, needing TANF and SNAP and all these programs because they're low income, they're living in poverty. And while 1% of all Americans, Black Americans, are incarcerated, it's a small percentage, right? We're talking about 98.9 aren't. A lot of that is our warrior class, our Black men, our able-bodied Black men that are no longer in the home to provide stability and leadership, to provide income. This is important. Does the Black church have a program for our people as they come out of jail and prison? Because you get a bus ticket and a couple dollars and you get dumped off wherever, oftentimes back where you came from because you're on probation, so you can't leave. So it may be difficult for you not to go back into the same circles that you were in. So do our churches have a program that is invested in our folks as they come into a halfway house or just straight released? Do they have some program and case management to help them find housing and a job, right? Because we always say, right? Oh man, these agencies are so horrible. They're racist. They discriminate. They do all these things, right? Then if that's the case, then it's up to us. Well, that was somebody's son. That was somebody's cousin. That was someone's brother. That was someone's sister. This is a small town. This is somebody's kinfolk. And they probably go to the church. What program is there? And again, this conversation works for any city in America. We just happen to be here in Kitsap County, so that's what we're talking about. The latest report from the Schott Foundation for Public Education shows that 40% of African American males drop out of high school. This data was from February 11, 2015. 40%. Okay. You got 5 boys, 2 of them ain't graduating high school. That's the odds, right? That's the percentage. Those are the numbers. But many of these single mothers, and I'll get to those stats here in a little bit, attend the Black church. So how is it only 40% or 40% are dropping out? The estimated median wealth of Black households is $36,000, while white households are estimated their parents' median wealth at $150,000. African Americans who are historically denied access to housing, wealth, face a substantial wealth disparity compared to whites. Our national test last year, only 18% of Black fourth graders scored proficient or above in reading. For white fourth graders was 45%. 3 times. For eighth graders, the percentage was 15 and 42% respectively. So it actually went down. It was 18% for fourth graders and went down 3% by the time they went through 4 more grade levels. It's sobering that more than half of white students fail to meet the proficiency bar. But damn, as sobering as that is, we're doing 3 times as worse as they are. As it says here, but the figures for black students should outrage anyone who cares about social justice. These dry statistics translate into greater struggles in high school, lower college attendance, and graduation rates, a higher likelihood of incarceration, and general bleaker futures. And we're going in the wrong direction. Those abysmal percentages for black students are lower than the figure from 2 years previous. So we're going in the opposite direction. So if your kids can't read right now, whatever level they're on, they ain't got time for video games. They ain't got time for the PlayStation. They ain't got time for the park. Unless you don't care about the school to prison pipeline. And hell, whatever. Maybe they'll be all right. Juvie be good for them. Jail be good for them. It is what it is. The stats are the stats. We can blame it on society. We can blame it on a whole bunch of things. But it's not like we don't know. It's not like we don't know. So for you young men, if you want to have a life, if you have goals and dreams, put on a condom. You're not ready to be a parent. You cannot take care of a child. You cannot take care of yourself. And you flush that condom down the toilet. You do not throw it in the garbage. Spurgling is a thing. That 10 to 15 seconds of ecstasy is not worth it. Women, you have so many different forms of contraception. It's not even funny. And both of you don't care about what it feels like, doesn't feel as good. Unless you want your life to be harder than what it already is. And for your kids to have a shit show of a childhood and even a more shittier show of an adulthood. You will have a lot to do with their criminal record. You damn sure control their literacy. So stop blaming it on the dominant society. Stop blaming it on white supremacy. Stop blaming it on institutional racism. All those things are factors, yes, but you know they're factors. So what are you going to do about it? And once you lay down and made them, take care of them. How is it that these are your your babies, your most precious possessions. I'm a mother. That's my kid, man. That's my seed on everything. Well, your seed can't read. Mother Teresa, your kids are being suspended. And they're going into the school to prison pipeline early. You don't have control over them. That's because TikTok is raising them. Cardi B is raising them. Little Nas X is raising them. The PlayStation is raising them. The Xbox is raising them. They can give you all of LeBron stats, but they don't know anything about their own history. Hell, they don't even know anything about their family history. It's on you. And that's also on the church. So if you only give a damn about their money, it's time for the tithes and offering. It's time for the tithes and offering. It's time for the tithes and offering. Wasn't like 10% of tithes and offerings supposed to go back to kids that didn't have fathers in the home? Thought that was like some original historical information. What are you doing with the money that's coming in? Is it just to pay the rent on the building so you can have church every Sunday? Church ain't a building. You know what? Burn that shit down and go have church in the park. And use that tithes and offering to set up a school, to set up a credit union. To welcome back those that have been incarcerated, that have lost their rights, that will never be able to vote again in a lot of cases, or bear arms, or get many of the government subsidies that exist for everyone else. Because by design, they make sure that they're no longer part of society. Pastor typically owns his home. Let's work on the percentage of the rest of your congregation becoming homeowners. About 67% of Black children are born into a single parent household. But again, we have thousands of churches in this country, and they're filled by a lot of single mothers and their kids. So they come into the church after they have the kid and they're stuck and they're trying to figure it out. And now they're there and they just keep showing up on Sunday. I submit they'd be better off taking a part-time job if they're not going to get the help that they need. The church used to be so many things. You know, the pandemic caused us to churches that didn't broadcast to start to broadcast, but some of the bigger churches have been doing it for a while, right? The sick and shut in can't get to church, so that they can get the message and they can view the service from home or wherever they're at. They can pay their tithes and offering through the Cash App or whatever the case may be. And it is good to physically be able to get together, but is it necessary? To that end, you know what? A lot of these churches have been around for a long time. So I'm assuming that many of the church buildings should be paid off unless they just keep refinancing and refinancing and refinancing. These churches are old. So it should be paid. Really, it should just be paying property tax and maintenance, right? So if you got a nice sized congregation, figure you should have some pretty good money coming in. Which race has the highest divorce rate? Here's an image for the result of the percentage of black marriages. All racial ethnic groups had more marriages than divorce. Black women were the only group that had a higher divorce rate than marriage rate, with nearly 31 divorces per 1,000 married women aged 15 and older, and only 17.3 marriages per 1,000 unmarried women. Again, our churches are filled with single mothers. Why aren't the men in the church? Where is the training on what these women should be looking for as a head of household? And vice versa for some of the men that are in there, right? I had conversation with a lot of single mothers that attend the church, and they have the same unrealistic list that they want from men. And then you ask, well, what do you offer? And it's, well, what I got to offer is they get to raise someone else's kids. That's really it. I mean, if I'm wrong, put in the chat. 30 years old. The average age for people going through a divorce for the first time is 30 years old. According to a recent report, more than half, or 60% of divorces, involve spouses who are between the ages of 25 and 39. However, while 30 is the average age, the divorce rate for people over 50 has doubled since 1990. Oof. See, this all used to be part of what the church was about. Church going African American married mothers are 31% more likely to report that they have excellent relationships with their husbands. So, for those that are married, they're 31% more likely to report that they have excellent relationship with their husbands. So, there's something that's working in the black church. We need statistics, we need data. Do you churches survey your congregation? Do you do a needs assessment on your congregation on what the needs are? 31% is high. More likely to report that they have excellent relationships with their husbands? How do we get more of that? How do we get the single mothers that are in the church to be in relationship so that they can get married? I think on Black demographics, they're saying 1 out of 4 Black women will marry in their lives. So while 25% of church going African American women, right? So you've got to ferret out the 25% of women, right? That's 6% of the population. And then it's lower than that because they have to be, in the marrying age. And then they have to attend the church. Those women are 31% more likely to say that their relationship with their husbands is excellent. So, how do we duplicate that? How do we build on that? Because we were the paragon of the married institution back in the civil rights era. That was us. And as far as Black fatherhood, we're still at the top, even though they tell us otherwise. More than 70% of Black women are unmarried, according to the 2010 census. (2010) 70% unmarried. And again, third and fourth wave feminism going along with the dominant society, the church going along with the dominant society, knowing that it's wrong, is the direct reason why we're in this situation in the first place. I don't need no man. I don't need to be married to have a kid. That's frightening. In 2019, the nation's report card from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, found that just 15% of eighth graders were at or above reading proficiency. About half didn't even reach the basic reading benchmark. Last week, the NAEP released its latest results for high school senior literacy. And this was November 3rd of last year. We're not even talking about 12 months yet. 15% of eighth graders. That means 85% were not reading at level. And half of those weren't even at the basic reading benchmark in the eighth grade. And you tell them, go look it up on the computer, Google it. You're not doing your kids any favors. So we talk about generational poverty. This is what we're talking about, right? You had a kid young. You didn't know what the hell you were doing. You weren't ready to be a parent. You couldn't take care of yourself. And a lot of times you decide to have another kid. Maybe not even with the same guy. For whatever the reason. Maybe he'll stay. We're going to be a family. Maybe I can get some resources. I always want a big family. So I'm being selfish, right? Because I want what I want. My little son or daughter needs to have a brother or sister so they're not lonely. Damn whether or not I can take care of them or not and give them the stuff that I didn't have. So now I'm gonna verbally and mentally abuse them because they're not doing what I need them to do. See, it's overwhelming. It's hard. Now, if I go to the church, maybe I'm gonna get what I need. I'm gonna learn how to be a woman. I'm gonna learn how to be a parent. I'm gonna have resources, folks that have knowledge, skill, ability, wisdom, mentorship. 15% of black eighth graders were at or above reading proficiency. 15%. You got 10 kids, it's 1.5 kids. And 4 of those kids didn't even have basic reading, but they could play the hell out of 2K. There's no joke with Madden. Ooh, boy, they can give an adult a run for their money on Call of Duty, and they will lose their shit if you try to take the game from them. Ninth grade is high school. So if you're not at reading proficiency, if you're not even at the basic reading benchmark, well, what's going to happen when they're in class? What has already probably happened, right? They're not paying attention. They're goofing off. They're sleeping. They're bored. They're the class clown. They're frustrated. To detention they go. School to prison pipeline. Well, see, it just gets faster and faster and faster. You know, you were in school. You didn't really like it when you were there. If you graduated, because remember, only, what is that, 40% drop out? So 4 out of 10 don't even make it to graduation. So now you don't even remember what high school was like. Remember, that's me. I only went to ninth grade. I'm the exception, not the rule. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna join the military? Nah, you don't do that. They're gonna be LeBron? Nah. I mean, it was cool. They played basketball all through Pee Wee, junior high, high school, for the time they were there. And grades kept them on the team. Or people lied and helped them pass their courses or put them in junk courses so they can stay eligible because, the school. Maybe even they make it to college that way. But after that, the likelihood they go into the pros is minimal. But they've been taking BS classes the whole time, underwater basket weaving, and then they got TAs and folks turning in the work. They haven't learned nothing. And when they're done with their collegiate career, if they're actually that good, what do they fall back on? And God forbid they get hurt. That's the church's job. That's their role, part of it. Of course, they want to be hip hop artists. And it would be cool, make a lot of money, and they take care of mama. They gonna buy mama a house. But you're so busy and overworked anyway. Go ahead, as long as you ain't causing me to miss my shift because I got to pay my rent, boy. I got to pay my mortgage, boy. Don't mess up. And then because he doesn't have anyone around him, no men, because a lot of times they've been chased away either by the system or the women. They become over emotional because they're emulating the only parent in the home. She can't deal with him anymore, so she puts him out. And again, my beautiful baby, my heart, so cute, is now slanging and spraying. Because what else he got? Can't read. No point in going to high school. Couldn't stay on the team. He is mediocre at best anyway. Now he comes back to get resources from you when he needs it, or maybe he drops you off a stack every now and again. But the whole neighborhood is gone to shit. If he gets high in his own supply, he's coming in and breaking into the house, stealing, making it hard for you to be able to do what you got to do. You're putting up your house, if you got one, to bail him out. And if you could tell one of those mothers they could go back in the past and all they had to do is read to their kids and encourage them to read books and not fall into what the dominant society was saying to do. Hell, wait until you can actually take care of the child that you bring into the world. The church has an opportunity. It really does. We got to find a way back. 2045 will be here in a blink of an eye. The Haitian brothers and sisters, they're going back. Got the Delta variant. The moratorium is about to expire. $300 unemployment's already gone. 150,000 Afghans that need to be taken care of. Infrastructure bills that need to come out. Many are still incarcerated or convicted felons. Can't do business in some arenas. Don't have the training or the help or the support. The black family has been devastated at its worst state than it's ever been in, and it's only getting worse. Our babies are so cute when they're 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, and they start changing. as we let it be a part of the most toxic parts of our culture and the things that the dominant society pushes on us, and we fall for the trap. No longer do we care about Christian, conscious rap. We want the mumble rap. We want the drama. We want the violence. We want the world star hip hop. Record labels aren't black. They're pushing through and we're consuming it. But we drive that. If we consume something healthier, they'll stop selling it to you because you're not going to buy it. That's the craziest thing about capitalism, right? It can have these white supremacist institutionalized systems designed to destroy us. But they're merely putting the poison on a plate for us. And we're saying thank you. And we're eating it up. We know what it is. And we're eating it. See, we're smart. We invented it. We know the difference. But we value that. And they say, okay, well, we'll push that. We'll put all the poison over there. We're not going to push this over here. We fall into it. Yep, this is what we like. Yep, this is what we like. Yep, this is what we like. So we don't praise our teachers, our inventors, our scholars, our sages. We chase the lowest common denominator. And then the church tithes and offering, tithes and offering. It's got its own junk going on. And hell, it's a business. So now it's capitalism in the church. We're not worried about the souls, we're worried about the dollars. Got to decide. There's not enough of us to survive. There's not. And I don't know what kind of life you had set for yourself, just for you, before you had any kids. What were your goals in life? What did you want for you? And even as you were thinking about, having kids and having that person by your side, what were those goals? What did you want for you and your children? And how the hell did you get so far off path? And how do you get back on? And are you willing to do what it takes to be accountable, to sacrifice, to make the hard choice, to make the long-term choice, to break the cycle of poverty, to break the cycle, that mentality of poverty? That's what I call it. Like there's this mentality of poverty, the way that people think, the way that they act, that they're enslaved in their mind. Give me the Henny and a blunt, I'm good. Get some ass, go to work, rinse and repeat. What's your purpose? Just did a podcast. We only have 3 months to live. what would you do? What would they say about you? What would you want them to say about you? And I know you say you don't care, but we all care to a point. I don't know. Did anyone have any family members that got caught up in the snowstorm in Texas last year? Did anyone's family die? How about Hurricane Ida? Anyone know anyone who lost their home or lost their life? Did anyone in the basement apartments in New York die during the flooding or during the tornadoes? I was listening to, I was reading a stat earlier that was saying that there's been enough death due to COVID now in this country that everybody now knows someone who's died of COVID. I remember thinking back how weird it was that, I'm listening to these stories and, I know a lot of people. So, of course, I'm going to be exposed to folks that have stories probably faster than the average person. But, it's like, oh, yeah, this person in this state got COVID, or my mom died and she was in this state, yada, yada, yada. Then it was this state. Then it was this county. Then it was my neighbor. Then it was the person who sits next to me on most days. Then it was me. It's like it's just getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. It's like, okay, when the hell are we gonna wake up? Whether you believe in the vaccine or not, you definitely should believe in social distancing and wearing the mask because they don't give a damn. I I will tell you, right? Who was that? I'm trying to think of Obama's advisor. He'd say, you never waste a good crisis. So whether or not you think that the pandemic was man-made, whether or not you believe that whether it was man-made or not, that they're not going to capitalize on it. Bad actors aren't going to capitalize on it. They are. And so you started seeing all these teachers dying in Florida and Georgia, right? Well, we get to take your house and we'll get it for a song. Your kids are going to argue over it, so it's just going to get sold, right? Because no one's going to keep it in the family or buy it off of the other family members, so it's going to get sold. You just lost one of your wealth creators, the thing that your parents had worked so hard for, and maybe your grandparents gone. Who are we going to replace that job with? I was just talking to Rob earlier or yesterday, who's explaining to me I wanted to go to Walmart in Port Orchard. And he's like, and there's like 40 self checkers, and there's only like 3 or 4 check stands with actual cashiers. Where are you going to work at? Where's your job? You gonna be an Uber driver? Huh? Actually don't pay a whole lot. Oh, and don't have a record. You also need a car, right? Unless you're gonna use theirs, which they're gonna charge you for. Are you gonna make food? I went to McDonald's yesterday. Will you be using the app today? Huh? What does that mean? You go in and they're showing you how to use the board in order. You don't even walk up to the counter. You do it on the board. Like, what's going on? Well, we got less employees. So yeah, you need some help. And they'll pay $15 an hour, but $15 an hour isn't even a livable wage, right? I've talked about that ad nauseum. But isn't that something that before the pandemic, the fight was for $15 an hour, right? That's $600 a week, $1,200 a paycheck. Right? Multiply that by 0.8 to get your taxes. It's $980 a month. You're making $1,800. Where do you live? How much is your rent? Even if you were getting 40 hours a week, $1,800 a month. Where are you living? Maybe your rent's $1,000. You got 800. You got to pay your internet, your cell phone. You got to get to work. You got electricity. You got water. Are you renting a room? Even renting a room now is like between $700 and $1,000. Have any credit card debt? Are you going to stay renting a room for the next 10 or 15 years? You're 30 freaking years old. You're renting a room? Oh, it's all you can afford. But now all of a sudden the pandemic is here. And now they're paying the $15 an hour that they didn't want to pay before, right? And it looks great now. Ooh, McDonald's saying, come on in, sign-in bonus, $15 an hour. So I'm paying $16. Woo! They were fighting to not give you that. Now they're handing it to you. And it still ain't enough. Crabs in a pot, right? The myth is if you put them in boiling water, they'll hop out. But if you put them in cold water and you slowly bring it to a boil, they'll just stay in there. You're the crab. You're boiling and you don't even realize it. Your church is probably one of the biggest opportunities for us to stabilize and begin to turn the ship around. But we got to dismantle a whole bunch of stuff. And there's some sinners in these churches that got to move out the way. There's gatekeepers that got to go. And then we got to have buy-in. Church is business. It is capitalism. But we should have credit unions. We should be teaching our own children. The dominant society should not be teaching our kids. And we get mad that they don't want to teach American history, Black history, what they did, how it happened. And we're fighting for them to do something that they don't want to do, that they're not going to do well anyway. And if your kid is one of the 85% of eighth graders that aren't at reading level, why are you fighting so hard to get them in a space where they're not going to get what they need? But the church used to be that place where they got what they needed. And no, we can't change it overnight. The Black church isn't all of a sudden going to open up schools across the country. But there are some Asian communities that send their kids to public school, and after school is over, they get on the bus and they go to another place. And they learn about their culture. They learn about history. They get their homework done. They do extra. We're no longer in an agrarian society. We do not have to go into the field and go and pick the crops. We should be in school year around. We're behind. We should be in school all day. What sense does it make for a parent to have to go to work, let's say 9 to 5, have to get their kid to school, but they're still at work and the kid's done? What can the parent do? Kids should still be in school. Kids should still be learning. They're behind. They can play video games all damn day and sit down, and that keeps their attention, but they can't learn all day. Oh, now they need a break? We keep advocating to dumb down, to keep us asleep. And now they're telling you that being woke is a bad thing. Go back to sleep. It hurts because you can't save everyone. And it hurts that not only you're not going to save everyone, you're not even going to save close to the numbers that you think or hope that you could save because they're going to fight you. I'm not going to eat better. I'm not going to do the things, sacrifice, delayed gratification. I'm not going to make the hard decisions. See, it's about me. I still want to live my life, right? You got kids now. So are you bringing the next inventor, the next asset to the community? Are you bringing the next thug, gang member, whore into the community? So we don't need any more of that. That does us no good. We get so upset with the police violence and the brutality. And it's bad, no doubt. But what we're doing to each other is far worse. And quite frankly, they can die. I don't care. Lil Nas X said he didn't care about your kids, right? He's putting out all this stuff, doesn't care what it does to your children. You don't care about your kids. You got them, you can't take care of them. They get lost to the gangs, they get lost to the drugs. They don't give a damn about human life. They're killing other kids, they're killing babies, they're killing each other. Good riddance. Destroying the black community. You clearly don't give a damn about your kids. So why should anyone else? The dominant society doesn't. Nat Turner, think about the slave revolts. And we think about meritorious manumissions and how there were those of us that would tell Massa, that folks were going to try to flee or fight. Those folks must be destroyed for us to have a chance. And I don't mean literally destroyed, but they need to be taken from their positions so that we can grow. Can't be about what they're getting for themselves and their families because they're keeping their folks in a dangerous place. The Black Caucus, destructive, feckless, useless, dangerous. But did they just pass some hip hop, some articles for hip hop acknowledgement? I don't know, some junk. They got Pelosi kneeling and wearing kente cloth, symbolic BS. And the black church, the big black church, going along to get along, just smiling and cooning it up when Biden and Kamala Harris come through. And now they're in office. You voted them in, and they've done nothing for us. As I said, please share this out. With your leadership, I waited for service to be over. Make sure you were good and filled with the Spirit, the Holy Ghost. So hopefully you would be coated in the blood of Jesus so that you can hear with an open mind. We got to move forward. Time is getting short. Emergency preparedness, emergency management. Winter is here. The crab in a pot mentality must end. The Black church must heal so that their people may come back and be stronger. Schools, banking, housing, training, personal, professional development, spiritual development. All these things are very much needed. The questions are there. If you have more questions, add to the list. And if you think you have the answer, please go ahead and contribute. We're stronger together, but we need direction. And right now, we are rudderless. All right. We got big shows for you tomorrow. I may even be on later on tonight talking about immigration, in particular, what's going on with the Haitians. But I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. I will see you next time.